Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. Hong Kong's major banks raised their prime rates, adding to the burden facing home buyers. A recycling levy on glass bottles is set to take effect next year. And Paul Chan insists that Hong Kong remains Asia's best financial center. Financial Secretary Paul Chan says punitive taxes meant to stamp out property speculation are here to stay, despite a recent market downturn. This comes as the Monetary Authority urged potential home buyers to be cautious after major banks pushed their lending rate to the highest level in 14 years. Hours after the U.S. Federal Reserve announced its sixth round of tightening this year, Hong Kong's biggest lender took swift action. HSBC announced from tomorrow its prime rate will go up by 25 basis points to 5.375%. The move was replicated by its subsidiary Hang Seng Bank, as well as Standard Chartered and Bank of China Hong Kong. The prime rate now stands at a 14-year high, surpassing the 5.25% mark in March 2008. This marked the second adjustment in just over a month, following a hike of 1/8 of a percentage point in September. A homeowner who took out a loan of $5 million would be paying around $700 more each month for a 30-year mortgage. The Monetary Authority, which also raised its base rate by 75 basis points to 4.25%, urged the public to carefully assess and manage the risks when making property purchases or taking out mortgages. On the other hand, Financial Secretary Paul Chan rejected fears that the recent property market downturn would trigger a wave of negative equity cases. He noted there are around 500 residential mortgage loans in negative equity right now, compared to over 100,000 during the late 1990s. Chen again dismissed the need to lift the cooling measures, which were rolled out in the past decade to keep home prices in check. Health officials say Financial Secretary Paul Chan is among more than 400 people considered as having recovered from COVID in recent weeks. Their statement came after Chan was seen maskless, even though his PCR test result was positive when he returned from Saudi Arabia. Janice Low reports.
Paul Chan had a negative result in a rapid antigen test before leaving the Saudi capital Riyadh, but was positive when he took a PCR test on arrival in Hong Kong on Tuesday. Health officials regarded him as a recovered COVID case, and he was seen maskless when addressing the Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit yesterday and today. But the financial secretary denied receiving special privileges.
The health authority look at my PCR test result, take into consideration the details of my health declaration, also take into consideration the fact that I did not have any symptoms on arrival. They finally decide this is a case of recovery, similar to the other 400 cases that they have handled before.
Health officials revealed that from September 26 to Tuesday, 455 inbound travelers were classified as recovered cases and not contagious.
If the result come back to be positive for these recovered persons, and they have declared the recent infection with COVID, we will evaluate their status and determine whether this case is a one recent infection, or second, a repositive case, or third, it is a recovered patient. So if we classify it as a recover or repositive case, we won't give them an isolation order or a red code.
Meanwhile, 5,245 COVID infections were logged today, including 416 imported cases. During the past week, The number of imported infections increased by 5%, while local transmissions dropped by around 10%. Another 192 COVID patients have been admitted to hospital, taking the tally to 1,985. The virus claimed 10 more lives. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Manufacturers and importers of glass bottles are set to pay a recycling levy next year. Lawmakers and green groups welcomed the move, but stressed that there's room for improvement. Macy Mock reports.
With a show of hands, lawmakers approved a resolution to impose a recycling levy for distributing glass beverage bottles. Manufacturers and importers will be charged 98 cents for a liter bottle, probably from the second quarter of next year. For a 330 milliliters glass bottle, manufacturers will have to pay 32 cents. However, they can be exempted from the levy if they recycle or reuse their glass bottles. Architectural sector lawmaker Tony Tse said the scheme might not encourage manufacturers to recycle as the levy is too low. He pointed out that it is even lower than the $1 that will be charged for a plastic shopping bag starting at the end of this year. Tse added glass bottles for liquid condiments and cosmetics are excluded. The DAB's Elizabeth Quat feared that firms could switch to cartons, which would not help reduce waste. Wholesale sector representative Peter Xu warned that some companies might pass the levy to consumers. Environment Secretary Tse Chin-wan said the government will monitor the scheme for 3 years and review its effectiveness. Green groups welcomed the move, but pressed for more to be done.
So I think it's a good start, but I do think that the government can be more aggressive to require the manufacturer or the importers to set up the target of reducing the use of disposable items.
Tam suggested setting a target for companies to reuse 10% of the glass bottles they distribute and raise the percentage each year. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The High Court has dismissed a second legal challenge against the government over thousands of COVID vaccination exemption certificates. The court said it was reasonable to amend the law to empower the health chief to invalidate the certificates. Joanna Ho reports.
Last week, Kwok Chur-kin launched a second legal challenge against the government over more than 20,000 COVID vaccination exemption certificates deemed questionable. This came after the law was amended to give the health secretary the power to invalidate suspect certificates. Kwok, dubbed the king of judicial reviews, won his first challenge when the High Court barred the administration from nullifying the certificates. That ruling prompted the legal amendment. Today, the same court rejected Kwok's second application, declaring that the government's move was reasonable. In response to his argument that there is no appeal mechanism for those holding nullified certificates, Judge Russell Coleman said the doctors who issued the waivers can challenge the invalidation by writing to the health minister. He said the government has provided the means for certificate holders who are legitimately unsuitable for vaccination to regain exemption. Rejecting Kwok's claim that the law shouldn't empower health chiefs as those appointed in the future might not have medical expertise, Coleman said they can of course be properly advised. Kwok conceded defeat, saying the judge made sense, but slammed the government as shameless. He is also ready to lodge another challenge against the vaccine pass scheme next week. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
Overseas, Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been shot and wounded in the eastern city of Wazirabad. Khan was leading a protest march when he was attacked. Initial reports say he was shot 3 or 4 times in the leg, but he said not to be in danger. His supporters rushed him to hospital in Lahore, where the march began last Saturday. 2 other leaders of his party were also wounded. Khan and his supporters were marching to the capital, Islamabad, to demand fresh elections. Two pharmacy chains have agreed to pay $5 billion each to settle nationwide lawsuits over opioids, which have killed hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. Neither Walgreens nor CVS Health admitted wrongdoing.
If lots of cases went to trial, it could end up costing the companies far more. This gives them some financial certainty and a chance to move ahead with their regular business operations.
Walgreens and CVS were accused of mishandling prescriptions for painkillers. The one-time settlement, to be paid over a decade, frees the two giant firms from going to court to settle thousands of individual claims. Since the turn of the century, about 650,000 people in the U.S. have died after overdosing on opioids. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has urged his followers to end nationwide protests. Lorry drivers who support the right-wing leader blocked highways after he lost his bid for re-election. Bolsonaro released a video calling for an end to the blockades and civil disruption. His supporters also gathered at an army headquarters in Rio de Janeiro, demanding the military to step in to keep him in power. Bolsonaro lost to Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva on Sunday in the tightest presidential race since Brazil returned to democracy in 1985. Paul Chen says the city's financial system remains resilient and warned against betting against the Hong Kong dollar. The financial secretary has said the city's massive foreign currency reserves and its stringent regulatory and surveillance systems can hedge against risks and volatility. Chloe Fong reports.
As the Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit reached its finale, Financial Secretary Paul Chen again boasted that the city remains the best financial center in Asia. Chen was delivering his second in-person speech at the stock exchange in Central after his unexpected brush with COVID. The confidence, Chen said, came from the city's disciplined and transparent regulatory and surveillance regime. He noted that Hong Kong's war chest of $430 billion in foreign currency reserves is 1.7 times the city's monetary base and is a strong buffer against potential risks.
So, if you bet against Hong Kong dollar, you are bound to lose. You can verify my advice with certain hedge fund managers in the US who has been wrong about Hong Kong dollar time and again.
Stock Exchange Chairwoman Laura Cha stressed that connectivity should be strengthened to cope with the rising geopolitical tensions.
We hear regionalization these days instead of globalization. But regionalization cannot exist by its own in isolation. Regions still need to be connected. And in a fragmented world, we need connectivity more than ever.
Executives from 9 leading investment management firms took part in 2 panel discussions on navigating the challenging landscape while creating value from the downturns.
At the close of the 3-day summit, Monetary Authority Chief Executive Eddie Yue told participants that next year's event will coincide with the 30th anniversary of the city's de facto central bank. He also said Hong Kong is regaining its energy and hoped that guests will enjoy the Rugby Sevens, which will kick off tomorrow. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Hong Kong stocks lost gains made earlier this week as the Monetary Authority followed the US Federal Reserve and raised its base rate. The Hang Seng Index sank 3.1% in a volatile session. HSBC, which is increasing its prime rate, dropped 2.7%. New World Development lost 4.7%, and Wharf Holdings was down 3.3%. Tech giant Alibaba shed 6.5%. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index was down by 487 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent lost $9.20, Meituan down $5.20, while Alibaba was down $4.40. Casino Bio was down $49, while Wuxi Biologics was down 65 cents. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro's at 7.65, pound sterling at 8.82, while the Australian dollar at 4.94. And finally, in Europe, the London FTSE is currently down by 42 points. On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be mainly cloudy with some showers and sunny intervals. Temperatures will range between 22 and 25 degrees. Showers and periods of sunshine this weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. And join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good night.